Nice. And talking about the users, so I guess with the existing credit scoring system, like what's wrong with it now, and what are you trying to address about that?
Yeah, so it's I can only look at it from a U.S. based perspective. So let's look at it from the very, very, very privileged perspective of being a U.S. citizen and living in the U.S. You've got a credit score which may or may not be indicative of actually your capability to repay any debt that you would have. So it only looks at a very specific set of criteria, which is typically stale and is typically non encumbering like how you like what would actually drive credit worthiness. So again, there's some metrics that it'll look like of assets and everything else, but it doesn't look at cash flow, or it won't take into consideration you paying your rent or if you've got an automobile. So there's a lot of these different things that it misses traditionally. Some fintechs have moved into the market to try to provide this data to help smooth out some of those ratings. But at the end of the day, there's very little explainability to where you go to Experian and you look at your score, and it's like, all right, well, why is it like that? Like, good luck trying to get a response as to why your score is like that. And if you try to move the needle in any one direction, they'll tell you, "Well, get in more debt." It's like, well, I don't necessarily want to get in more debt. I should still be able to live, or I can still service debt and show that in some way without having to stack on more and more debt. So there's a lot of limitations within the current system based in the U.S. And then if you go outside the US and even other developed countries, there's a broad access issue to credit in general because the local banking or financial system just simply doesn't want to extend credit because they view them too risky, or there's not enough traditional history to be able to support that as well, which again, I think is one of those killer use cases and applications for DeFi, being able to marry some of these different pieces of off-chain information with their behavior on-chain for credit scoring to not just enable a better differentiated service within these developed markets, but gain access for these developing markets for the underserved. That's whenever this starts to really, really, really get interesting. And then you start seeing more fintechs and more banks starting to want to participate and join in and get their hands in the game, because that's whenever they'll see the writing on the wall in a lot more clear and present, so to speak.